Last minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple as one,
What's
two,
up?
three. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Well, hello there, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, well-being expert and wellness coach, Darlene Marshall, and I've been going through a bit of a change in my life over the course of the last few months. A couple of months ago, I ended a long-term relationship, and that's meant that the last few months I have been in the process of disentangling all of the big and the little things that become enmeshed when you're with someone for a long time in a committed way. And I think lots of people have been there. I'm not the first. I won't be the last. But when the decision was made, when that moment of like, okay, all of the iterations of trying to figure it out are resolved, decisions made, I knew that it was made because I told the people closest to me that it was done. And for me, a lot of times I'll be slow to come to a really big decision. Like I've talked about on the show, I get a little bit of decision paralysis for even little things. But once I've made that decision, communicating it to the people closest to me partly is the accountability of it, right? And they all did this thing that I didn't really know that I needed. I wouldn't have seen it coming. I wouldn't have guessed that they would do it. I definitely didn't know I needed it. And it's one of the wonderful things about the people that love us, right? That they can see something in us that we can't always see in ourselves. And they essentially, this thing that they did that I wouldn't have expected, I wouldn't have communicated, they forced help onto me. And they did it in a lot of big and little ways. Like my dad, I mean, he practically moved in with me. He was there for dinner after work almost every night for weeks on end. On the weekends, he would just kind of like hang out at my house with my cats, which was great. One of my friends booked a plane ticket like a couple weeks out of the actual event, but immediately went up and booked a plane ticket because she knew I wouldn't ask for needing people around, but she also knows me. I'm pretty extroverted. I need people around. And there's, like I say, lots of big and little ways. My mom calling me every day, my sisters making dinner plans, because the people that know me really well know that I won't ask for the things that I need. And frankly, I really just suck at asking for help, period. And it's not because I don't think that people don't need help. And it's not because I don't think that I personally deserve help. I think both of those things are true. And I often say in my workshops, I say it on the show sometimes, humans are pack animals. We literally need one another to survive. But I like needing people for fun. I like needing people for adventures. I like needing people for celebrations, to throw a party. I like being needed. I like being the helper. But for most of my life, I have been a pretty self-reliant person. And when something so intense happens that I can't rely on myself, I immediately feel like I am a burden. And if I look back into my history personally, if I look back into the history of my family, I totally understand where that very unhelpful set of beliefs comes from. I can understand it, I can intellectualize it, but in the moment, that doesn't mean I can change it. And the last, say, 7, 8 years of my life have really shown me this thing about myself, that one of the hardest things for me personally is asking for help and letting people help me. And so today I want to share a bit about what I have personally figured out about not only how to ask people for help, but how to let them help you, why that really does matter. So a little bit of the psych underneath, but also just a little bit of my personal journey in figuring these things out for myself, because I think one of the things that I've come to figure out these last few years is how much telling our stories, sharing our stories, not only gives other people permission to be themselves, but that it's also how we evolved to learn. We didn't necessarily evolve to just learn facts and figures and science. We evolved learning through storytelling. So I'm going to give you a bit of both today. Now, the first thing that really clued me into in the last few years, my absolute inability to accept help, was watching two of the closest people in my life in their intimate partner relationships. And the first is my best friend, Carla. Shout out, Carla. OG fan of the show, has been loving up on the show from the beginning. And I've talked about Carla on the show before. And then the second person is my cousin, Renee. I only have two female first cousins. Renee also listens to the show. I know she's probably listening driving to work. So shout out to Renee as well. Carla has a beautiful wife. Renee is about to marry her soon-to-be wife. And it was seeing them both in their relationships that really highlighted for me that maybe I have a problem. Like maybe I'm the problem in some of these situations. And it started visiting Renee and her soon-to-be beautiful wife, Lynn. Lynn wanted to carry my bag. She wanted to drop us off at the door while she parked the car. She wanted to bring us a drink while we're sitting on the couch. All these little things that I didn't necessarily need someone to do for me, and immediately made me uncomfortable. And not uncomfortable like my skin was crawling, but uncomfortable like, should I be helping? I don't need you to do that for me. Don't you want to relax too? That kind of stuff. And after a day or two, I finally said something to my cousin Renee about it. And she clues me to be like, no, that's how Lynn shows affection. That's how Lynn shows that she likes you and cares about you. Like, let her do it. It makes her happy. And I do think that it is partly funny, something about me, that I needed to be watching lesbians do this in order to see it in myself. Because I could see where if it was men, I might be defensive or kind of weird about it because of just so aggressively independent. Like that's just one of the things about my personality that I have come to accept and also to be working with. Right? Like when you hear people talk about shadow work, what they're really talking about is the things about ourselves that we have been taught to resent or reject, or maybe we leaned into too hard, like strengths overuse. And this is something about me that I've been learning to negotiate. And I don't really have great language for why. My first husband didn't really do that kind of stuff very often. My second husband did, but he did it with a bit of like, hurry up, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to do it for you because you're going to do it wrong. And there was stress underneath it. And so it didn't feel like an act of service. It didn't feel like an act of help. It made me feel like this burden thing I'm talking about. So I started watching the way that I react when people just do nice things for me. And I realized, I have a wonderful stepfather. I don't actually call him my stepfather. He's my bonus dad. Again, shout out to Jack. You're going to get all kinds of shout outs to people I love today. Jack loves to cook for our family. He'd make food. I always feel like a jerk if I'm not helping him while he's preparing food, while he's setting up for the family. But having seen this in Renee's partner and then coming home and observing it in my stepdad, I realized that it makes him happy. It doesn't make me a jerk because it makes him happy to help. So I started watching for these helper paragons, these examples of people in my life who just love to do acts of service for other people and their partners, the people in their world who are able to receive it with grace and kindness. And again, I would see Carla and her wife just helping one another in these kind of symbiotic, lovely ways, and like total mind blown to this absolute blind spot in myself that had taken, let's say, 39 years in order to reveal itself. And along the way, I started to just noodle on the idea that Human beings, we are never meant to go it alone. We are interdependent. And that's a word we're going to unpack together in just a moment. Even the people who say they're self-made, just think about it for a second. Somebody had to grow their food. Somebody had to assemble their computer and their phone. Someone had to sew their clothes because they're not doing those things for themselves. They're probably, if they're rich enough, they're not cooking their own food. They're not washing their own dishes. But if you're like me, as I set this all up for you and you think of yourself as so independent, or maybe you had some things also like me that happened early in your life that make you feel like relying on people might be a little bit dangerous, right? They might let you down. They might use it against you. Or if you're also like me and you get to the point that when you do have needs that you need from other people, you feel like a burden. Hello there, trauma response. It can be really uncomfortable. It can even feel threatening to need other people. And then asking for help means that you actually do need somebody. And it can be really scary at a point if you got enough of that other stuff going on. And that's definitely what I'm bringing to the table. You're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Marshall. And today we're talking about how do we ask for help and then also actually receive it. And this first big one for me was to find helper paragons, to find people in your life who are in a dynamic where they are asking for help, they are receiving help, or you've also got people who are giving help, who are acts of service people, that it isn't a burden to them, that they're happy to do it, that it's their choice. So let's talk about, I dropped this word a moment ago, interdependence. I want to talk about not just interdependence, but another word that you probably have already heard that's similar, which is codependence. These two words, codependence, interdependence, are, I think, examples of frameworks that we can use for what do it look like if people are doing it right. If human beings are pack animals, and generally most of us know the word codependent is bad. Well, if humans are pack animals, what does good look like? So let's start with codependence. Codependence, by definition, is when a person's self-worth and identity are enmeshed with another's needs and approval. We're going to unpack that a little bit. So your identity of yourself, your value, and even your identity might be in someone else's needs, right? Like I take care of them. I'm a caregiver. That's what that. Or like you need to be needed, or you need to have approval. So this is where you feel responsible for other people's happiness, other people's well-being. There's a lack of boundaries. So one person might completely sacrifice themselves for somebody else, even when it's unhealthy, even when it's to the detriment of both involved. And a lot of times emotionally, it involves control, guilt, enabling, especially if there's some substance use involved. So this might be enabling addiction, or what in my mom and my household, when we've talked about some of the things that happened when I was growing up, we call it keeping the peace, right? So, okay, I'm going to tiptoe around this person. I'm going to not advocate for myself. I'm not going to reinforce my boundaries. I'm not going to speak up for what I need, because then there's going to be a fight. So I'm just going to keep the peace. And yeah, guilty. And for many people, this does come from their childhood template, trauma, bad relationships, gaslighting, being manipulated. There's all kinds of variables. And I think it is not uncommon for this to get gendered as like, well, women are subject to the negative sides. Like this happens to men too. Men can be manipulated into the abused side of a codependent relationship. It doesn't only go one direction. But codependency is when we get caught up into the exploitative side of service. And obviously that's what we're trying to avoid. And I think for me, I so desperately didn't want to be, soft quotes, like that kind of woman, the naggy kind, or the like, oh, get labeled like I'm in a 90s sitcom and you're just constantly making fun of the woman who's trying to speak up for herself, that I just like didn't want to ever have any needs, right? I was just going to constantly go with the flow. But that's not healthy, right? That's not healthy either. So then what does good look like, right? What is the not messed up version of humans or pack animals? And that's where we can turn to this concept of interdependence. So interdependence is when people mutually rely on and support one another while maintaining their independent sense of self and their autonomy, right? So they're choosing to be in support, in reliance, but they still have agency. They still have an authentic self. So this is setting boundaries and reinforcing them, communicating about them well, right? We've talked about boundaries on the show before. Having a sense of self-worth outside of the relationship. So you're not defined by it, and you're not defined by the approval of your partner, by the needs of your partner, by their well-being. Mutual respect and support without trying to fix or control the other person, right? So they're them, you're you, and you're supporting one another. And then a balance, right? Give and take of help, of encouragement, of care. So it's not so one-sided, right? I talked about okay, Lynn's carrying the bags, but Renee's also doing a lot of the social planning. And there's a similar dynamic with Carla and her wife. So I had these great examples of what that interdependence can look like. And so codependence, you lose yourself in someone else's needs, wants, desires, potentially exploitation. Interdependence, you keep your integrity of the self and you mutually co-support. That sounds great. Okay, so we've got this model, right? We got the light bulb moment. Oh, I'm missing something important here. Maybe I'm too independent and I'm not good at letting people help me. Boop. Okay, I've got this idea. Interdependence, mutual support, standing freely as yourself with autonomy and agency, but you got to let people in because we get farther when we go together. So if you're struggling to ask for help, for accepting help, how do we move past it? Well, with these helper paragons, I just started to observe. How were they interacting with one another? When were they asking for help? When they would ask for help, how does the other one react? And these positive, affirmative exchanges of interdependence. And I watched both people in both directions, right? Giving, taking, and not to be a creeper, just to clarify, they knew I was doing this because I called it out. These are the people who are closest to me in my world. This is my inner circle bubble. And I said, oh, I think I have a problem with this. This is what I'm noticing. I was very uncomfortable in myself. And this is over the course of years. This is not just the last few months. But the last few months is where I really had to use these skills that I had observed in practice. And then this next little nugget of skills and ideas comes from Isaac Perel-Tensky at the University of Miami. And it has to do with research on belonging. I've talked about this a little bit on the show before too. Isaac in his work talks about the exchange of feeling valued and adding value, and that those are essential ingredients for belonging. That when we're in this state of interdependence, we feel valued by the person, the group, the collective, but we also have a way to contribute, right? That's why it's give and take. So we feel that we belong because we know we matter to people or to the group, and we contribute back. This was a big light bulb, aha, park me on my heels and think about it moment. As I'm observing these givers and takers, as I'm thinking about interdependence, and then I revisited this work on belonging because I'd been talking about it in workshops on the communal level, but I hadn't really been thinking about it on the one-to-one level, and I was really missing something. If we deprive the other person of the opportunity to contribute, of their urge to help, I'm communicating that, oh, I don't want you to contribute. I'm depriving them of the positive emotional payoff of the helping, of the contribution, and then I'm breaking that exchange of meaning and mattering. It's no longer mutual. I'm removing part of the essential circuit that creates belonging. I'm a helper person. I love helping. I'm taking away the opportunity for someone that loves me to help me and get that same feeling that I have when I give to something I love. That was the essential light bulb for me. You're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Marshall, and I'm sharing how do you ask for help? How do you actually accept help? And how have I really struggled with this over the course of my life and doing the big work on myself right now. So this exchange, this give and take, this meaning and mattering, right? This feeling valued and adding valued is a really necessary ingredient, I think, for interdependence. And that's what I want, right? I am a pack animal just like you. I want to not be lonely and isolated. I want to allow for the helper. And this show, like if you're close enough to me, if you've worked with me, if you've come to one of my workshops, I love to joke about like, oh, are you better than fine? Like I love to name drop the show kind of ironically, but also there's a reason it's called Better Than Fine. Because what do we do when we pretend that we're okay? Colloquially, I'm an elder millennial. It's in my language. We say, oh, I'm fine. I don't need anything. I'm fine. I'm fine. But 7 years ago, my first divorce, a bunch of crazy stuff happened to my family that year too. I was not fine, but saying it all the time. And that was this dawn of needing something more. Because I think if you grow up a certain kind of way, if you grow up with some of the challenges of poverty, abuse, neglect, systemic challenges, seeking fine feels like a big win, right? Just getting to the place where you're stable and the bills are paid and you're not worried about what's going to come next is a big win. And I was very content there for a long time. And then I realized there was so much more, and that's where the ideas, these shows had led me. But part of that so much more is actually admitting to yourself that you need other people and that you need their help. You need so much more than just their help, but you need their support. You need their love. You need their nurturing. So with these first two steps, right? Observing the helpers, my light bulb moment about realizing that in order for there to be belonging, it has to be an exchange. I can't just be this person that's constantly like, I'm helping you. I'm helping you. And then I started to admit this to the people in this inner circle, this inner bubble. I need your help, but I'm really uncomfortable. I'm even uncomfortable talking about it right now on the show. But it is something that I really feel like can be helpful. So, vulnerability and all that. I need your help, but I'm really uncomfortable. And it was so funny in the response I got. It was not like oh, you need help, but you're so strong and you're so resilient, which people do, like they said those things to me because they were trying to build me up. But what they also said is like, yeah, girl, we know. We know that you're uncomfortable. We know you don't accept help well. You're really bad at accepting help because the people that love you are going to already see it, right? As you are tiptoeing into opening up the thing to talk about the thing that you don't want to talk about, to say the things you don't want to say, the people that really get you are going to be like, yeah, we've been waiting. We've been waiting for a hot minute. And that's exactly what they did, of course. And so what I did was I let them make me uncomfortable. I let myself knowingly, self-awareingly be uncomfortable with their help. And I love them and I trust them so much that I was willing to have this like very scary set of feelings of needing them happen and also need them. So the safest people to me, my mom, bonus dad Jack, Carla and Ruby, my dad, Renee and Lynn, Christine and her plane ticket, right? These people who, and there's so many other people, it's not just them. Lots of people in my life, clients who picked up on it, friends of the show, people on socials. But because I named it, because I called it out, I am bad at accepting help, but I am uncomfortable and I'm going through this thing and it's really hard and I need you. It took a lot of the power out of it. It let us make fun of it, right? You've heard me making fun of myself this whole episode. I am not good at this. Okay. because they were like, yeah, you're bad at accepting help. We know. And we were able to laugh at it, but also use it. And for me and my work and my, like Earth School here at Earth School, examining where it was coming from and why, and then trying to heal those unhelpful beliefs around, well, I can't trust anyone. They're just going to let me down. Clearly that's not true. My dad's been living on my couch every night. Clearly that's not true. Christine bought her plane ticket. Clearly that's not true. I've seen, Carl lives on the other side of the country. I've seen her a bunch already this year, because the effort being made illustrates to me that the belief isn't true. Right? It's unhelpful. It's outdated. I know there's a lot of people who struggle with this, like I do. Partly I know that from helping clients with things like this, but also because we are in a society that glorifies the ideal of independence, right? And I'm not saying, the value of independence on the governmental level and the protection of that is one thing, but the glorification of it, of like the maverick who does it all themselves, the self-made whatever the heck, is just a lie. We are an interdependent species, and there are a million things that you take for granted every day that are benefits to your life that you didn't do. There's a space heater under my desk right now. I didn't build that space heater. It's keeping me warm. I didn't sew this jacket. But we have this mythology around independence that's just inaccurate. And I really believe for us as individuals, for families, for communities, for societies, for a species, for us to heal and grow into something better than the trauma, than the mess, than the stress of what so many of us are enduring right now, we have to learn to work together. We have to learn to be interdependent. And we can only learn that if we are willing to be uncomfortable, to communicate with one another, and to let each other help. Of course, I would love to hear your feedback on this and every episode of Better Than Fine. So if you'd like to reach me, you can email me. It is info@darlene.coach. My Instagram is also darlene.coach. Very available on LinkedIn. If you're a fan of the show, I hope that you've subscribed, like it, share it, comment, do all the things. You know what to do. You've done this a million times. If you write us a review, it helps to game the algorithm, and that helps the show to grow. So we appreciate it very, very much. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves. Ask for help and be well.